Hello everyone, welcome to Spot On Chess, and we have a very exciting game for you today. One of the older lions of American chess, now American chess, is Levon Aronian, and he's been a top player for quite a while. He's playing white, and he played 1e4, best by test, Bobby Fischer's favorite, and he is playing young chess gunslinger Sam Shankland, who responds with c5. Did Aronian play for a close? Did he play a Grand Prix? Did he play some sort of G3 system? Did he play bishop to c4? Nope. Looks like he was interested in playing an open Sicilian. And so is Sam Shankland. Right here, that makes it the open Sicilian with the exchange in the center. C for D pawn. This knight on f6 threatens e4 pawn. White defends by placing the knight on c3, which does block in the c pawn. Trade-offs. We have a Najdorf. Could have been a dragon. Could have been Lowenthal Pelican, Sveshnikov, or not Sveshnikov, that would be that kind of structure, but Scheveningen. But no, instead we had a Najdorf. And so both players are going to play sharply this game. They're going to play for the win. And we fans like to see that. Now we see this rook come down. Obviously, black's not castling to the king side now. What is fascinating, though, is that after the knight retreats, Levon Aronian smashes up the pawns over on the king side. Queen comes out to try and help coordinate for an attack. Levon Aronian says, well, you better capture that pawn and destroy your own pawn structure for me. Thank you very much. And now the rook is attacked on h3, the pawn on e6 is attacked. But here we have an exchange sacrifice. When you give up a rook for a knight, especially in the Sicilian on c3 right here. Usually, though, it's this rook that does it, because in the Sicilian, usually you have the rooks charging down the open c file. That's not the case here. Now, white does lose some control over the center because of that exchange sacrifice. And here, we see a beautiful play where Shankland is going for the central pawn, and he allows Levon Aronian to have this passed A pawn. So this is going to be all about the attacks. Who's seen further? Who's going to calculate better here? And here, Levon Aronian's like, well, let's get rid of that queen. I'll feel a bit safer without that queen there. A disruptive check. Both kings are in the center of the board, and there are no safe seeds at this feast. And there was this threatened discovery, obviously, so Shankland gets his king out of the way of that. And now, after this exchange, this is kind of a questionable move according to computers, but bishop d3 is played to create this pin on the knight to the queen, so maybe after queen e1, that knight goes lost, then you get the bishop on the long diagonal, and it's going to be absolute murder down that long diagonal, because this pawn would be touching down on a white square, and that long diagonal is comprised of white squares, so you get your bishop on it as white, you're in business. And right here, Levon does not get to win the piece because this forces the exchange of queens off. And then here he plays for an attacking idea where he gives up the knight, but now he's threatening to bring his rook to b8. And that would be a win. You couldn't play rook takes rook because then the pawn would promote. So there needs to be a second piece guarding that. That's the bishop going to d6, looking backwards at b8. Pawn takes. And right here, the pawns are coming up the board. And it is black that gets on the long diagonal, but these pawns are going to be a problem. And right here, you really can't retreat the knight, because then there's these two rooks attacking you from either end. The pawn falls on g7, and it's just going to be murder. Absolute chess carnage. We'll say it like that. And so right here, Shankland has to give up the two pieces. And here, if the rooks are exchanged, white will be winning, and that's exactly what happens. Now, there's a bit to and fro of the kings. Aronian starts to go off to the queen side to help with the promotion, but then Shanklin sends off these pawns to decoy him, but they are then blockaded because they can't go to the white square. They'll be captured. And here, after this move, Sam Shanklin tendered his resignation because he's dead lost. Why is he dead lost? Well, one example line is if you take, then the bishop gets on the long diagonal, and when that bishop leaves, just instant pawn promotion. You can't stop it. Oddly enough, that's basically the decisive game that cost Ding Liren his world championship against Gukesh. Was he blundered and allowed the forced exchange of the bishops on the long diagonal, and it led to a lost endgame. Fascinating game. Levon Aronian shows his class. He's in contention, half a point behind our leaders, So Caruana and Wesley So. Very interesting tournament. This was from round 8. We still have several rounds to get through, and it's anyone's championship for the taking. Fascinating stuff. Check out the St. Louis Chess Center for all the details, and enjoy the chessboard hostilities. Take care. Peace out.